All right, so thank you guys for coming today. We have the Foodie Fun at Home, short insights to healthy eats, and this is sheet pan meals. So it's a shorter class, but lots of fun information, hopefully, so you can make a sheet pan meal tonight or for March at some point. Can you believe it's March? I can't. All right, so my name is Andrea Nicolai, and I work with the University of Florida in the Extension, and I'm a registered dietitian, and I love talking about food and nutrition, so I'm glad you guys are here. I'm going to just quick. All right, fix that. All right, and so let's get started. If you haven't used Zoom in the last couple years, you are blessed. No, I'm just kidding. So if you haven't used Zoom, just if you miss the bar on the bottom or the top, if you want to write something in the chat box, I welcome any questions or feedback. So you can kind of, hover on the top of the bottom of the screen and that bar should show up. And then sometimes there's a chat. And if it's not down there, it's probably in the more section. All right, and then just like he was saying, I have a short evaluation. I'll send that to you guys following the webinar. I know it's not a long webinar, but it'll just help me kind of figure out what I need to zero in on and how I could be a better teacher. So sheet pan meals. So these are three big things you need to know, plus a bonus and recipes, just because that's fun. So we got the basics, the timing, what to try, bonus tips, and then recipes. So sheet pan meals, right? They're just fun. There's one and done. There are less dishes. They decrease stress. You can just put it in the oven and that's it. After just watching it eventually. So completely flexible. There's no expensive equipment, no precise procedures. And you might feel you want to know the timing. So just hear me out on that. And then it's just very flexible. So it's kind of like an open block for creativity. So here's the basics. Sorry. Here's the basics. So pan type low rim. And so why do you ask? So like, you know how there's the Pyrex dishes or there's like cake pans with higher sides? It's hard to crisp because the air's not circulating around it. So it's more like steaming. So if you want crisper results, you'd be better with a low rim on the side. And that allows the air to circulate more. And then the middle of the oven, if the pan is placed near the bottom, it's more like sauteing. And then if it's very close to the top, you can be like broiling, roasting it. And there are definitely times for that, for both of those. But if you put the food in the middle, that'll get, more of the results you want. And then the oven temp, this is not the time for low and slow. This is more, if you do it that way, it's kind of more mushy. You want to roast it on a higher heat, generally around 400 degrees, maybe a little bit lower. And it's crispy on the outside and tender on the inside is what you're aiming for. And then baking it uncovered, or roasting it uncovered, I guess we'd say. Lining the pan with parchment or foil for easy cleanup. I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever cooked anything on a sheet pan, it's the corners that really get you usually. Like you're trying to get the thing out of, but yeah. So if you can do some parchment or some foil, that'll just save you. Single layer. When you put those veggies on there and whatever your meal is, the meats and stuff, you don't want to overcrowd. You can use two pans if you need to, kind of like a slight social distancing, just a little bit. And then making sure, single layer so they have room to breathe, because otherwise then they're going to be steaming instead of roasting. And I've done this a lot. You always just want to fit a little bit more on there since you're putting it in the oven. And if you start piling it on there, you won't get the same results. So good to know. And then also just making sure that you cook the meat, if you have any meat on there, to the right temperature, and that's using that food thermometer there. So chicken, 165, pork and fish, that would be 145. And then so you want to know it's safe and that you kill the bacteria, and then you won't overcook it either. So that's can be also the advantage of checking the temperature. So timing. So sheet pan meals, you want to select things that cook at the same rate, or maybe you don't. You can add different vegetables to the baking sheet in stages. You can start roasting like the hardest, longest cooking vegetables first, and we'll talk about which those are, and then the softer cooking vegetables later on. And it is okay to cook them longer. So say you're not really quite sure and you're like, I'm not even going to do this because I'm going to screw this up. There's zucchini, summer squash, tomatoes. Like some of them, they even have a high moisture content, so they can go longer because they need to evaporate that water before they start getting crisp. So it's like, they have a high water content. a lot of vegetables do. And so you can't go wrong with roasting. And that's what I was going to try to say is most things just end up sweeter, nice crunchy bits, unlike vegetables um, overcooked through boiling or steaming, like overcooked roasted vegetables may dry out a bit, but they'll still retain shape and flavor. So that's the advantage of these. You can kind of overcook it a little bit and get away with it. If they're black, that might be a whole nother story, but um, yeah. Okay, if you want to eat faster, it can be good to know which things do take a while to get done, and maybe not the right, maybe it's not the night for a big chunk of potatoes because, so how do you know, right? So like one of the things that I learned one time is the shoe test, and that's just it does help me. It's like, can you squish them with a shoe? So potatoes and carrots, they're you can't really squish them that well, and they're gonna take a lot longer than like green beans, asparagus, tomatoes. So think about the stuff that you can squish with your shoe. It'll cook faster, and then it also depends on what size you cut them. So if you're gonna start shredding your potatoes, they're probably gonna be done pretty quickly. So the smaller the faster. So yeah, it depends on how big you cut them. If you're really hungry, you want to try shredding. So longest to shortest. So root vegetables. So that would be like your beets and those potatoes I was talking about, sweet potatoes, winter squash. Those things take a longer amount of time. And then there's the crucifers. There's the broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Those are all the cancer fighter ones. Those would take like the next longest. And then there's the soft vegetables like zucchini and bell peppers. See a lot of sheet pan meals with bell peppers. They just work out really well. Thin vegetables like asparagus and green beans, and then tomatoes, they take a little bit less time. If you guys have ever had burst tomatoes, like from roasting, it's really good. Leafy vegetables, like some people do kale or bok choy or Swiss chard, and that's not going to take very long at all. Just of interest, like one time, this is I was making a pork chop, and it called for making the pork chop and then you stick it like on top of a sweet potato, kind of like so you'd flavor the sweet potato. Well, that pork chop was done, but that sweet potato was nowhere near done. And I was in college. I just remember that my friend and I were trying that recipe. So it's like some of these things, they're taking longer than the meat is to get done. And you can put vegetable friends together. So you cook them at the same rate. Like if you think about the flowering guys, the cauliflower and the broccoli, they might have something in common. And the potatoes and squash, those are both pretty strong. So they would go pretty well together. And then the roasted toast. You want to roast them about 30 to 40 minutes and then tossing them about halfway. So you can see the vegetables in the background in that picture there. A little brown on the edges. And if you overdo it, it's actually okay. Like I said, it may be a little drier, but sometimes still good, sometimes even better. That charred, those like when it's slightly charred bits, they have a lot of flavor. So it's not like brownies or cookies where you can overbake them so easily. You'll be okay if you don't know the exact time. And if you aren't sure, one thing you can do is just try it in separate pans or separate sections and then just check every 15 minutes and you'll know next time. So you'll be like, okay, so these take way longer. And then you'll always know. So it's just like a one-time thing. And it reduces time. So here is a cutting technique. It reduces time because there's more surface area exposed to heat and pieces are also the same size. So it's called the roll cut or the oblique cut. And so you're cutting that at a diagonal then, and then you roll it just once like over and then you cut it again at the same spot. So you end up in like a triangle instead of just like, if you cut a carrot, it's just like two ends, but you have like a long ends this time. And that'll actually help it cook longer or cook faster. And there'll be more uniform sizes. You can also do something like the flour cut, which for the life of me, I just think I knew how to do that one time I did that there. But I think just that diagonal cut can be a really great thing, especially for tapered vegetables. You know how they're fat on the top and then smaller in the middle. So if you cut it like that way, then you can kind of make it longer for the ones closer to the small end and then like shorter, like more rigid, I guess, triangles for the other ones. And then timing, so meat times. So here, seafood, definitely they're shorter. So fillets, shrimp, don't take much time at all. Then there's the bone-in meat. So if you have it with the bone in, so pork chops, if you're trying to decide, or chicken, you're like, should I get the bone in? Bone in meat takes longer. So just FYI, bone in chicken breast, pork, like 30 to 40 minutes. And then I wanted to say too, beef, like other than ground beef, most cuts are best suited for searing on the grill or under the broiler, like steaks, or in a moist environment like braising pot. So just make sure you're checking the temp and lots of recipes. So I've just, for this class, kind of looked, scoured the internet over everything, but there's lots of recipes that people, like the 5 stars, where they're using pork tenderloin, tofu, chickpeas, shrimp, salmon, and chicken. Those are kind of the ones people use a lot. And then some ideas on what to try. So I really want you guys to eat your vegetables. So I would say you can pick 2 of your favorite vegetables and then add a protein. You want half of your plate fruits and vegetables. So then if you do the sheet pan kind of like that, doubling up on the vegetables, you'll end up like that. So hopefully. So seasoning, you could try like Italian or Cajun seasoning. You could do like a taco seasoning and use like your whole sheet pan for tacos. You could do a curry. You could do rosemary, paprika, like a Caribbean jerk style, or you could do garlic and herb. There's peanut sauce you could add at the end. My friend makes a really good peanut sauce. It's like peanut butter, soy sauce, and rice wine vinegar, a little bit of honey. You mix that together. And then there's a ginger honey soy sauce. And then when you get it out, so you have your protein maybe, and then you have your vegetables, then you could mix it with grains such as quinoa, or do some brown rice or something like that. Serve it with that. So you could also make a meal like that, mixing it with grains or pasta. So what to try? Something new. You could try eggs. There's definitely sheet pan recipes just using eggs and how you can use them multiple ways. So just break them on the sheet pan and put them in there. You can put them in cookie cutters. Just remember to spray them first, or it's hard to get the egg out. Chili. I actually saw a recipe where people, they first roasted the vegetables like the cauliflower, carrots, and things like that, and then after those had roasted, they added black beans, corn, a little bit of tomato sauce, and then they put these cornmeal biscuits like right on top of there and just baked it a little bit longer. So you really can do, like almost anything in a sheet pan. And you can do fruit too, like peaches, fresh cranberries with pork or chicken. I have a recipe for that coming up, but just some fun ideas. And then there's the grain salads. Okay, so sometimes toasted grains and toasting basically, it brings out the sweetness of vegetables. So that's why sometimes this can be really a great thing. And thinking about, maybe I want to make this grain salad. So it'd be like your brown rice or your quinoa or farro. And then you want to put in like black beans and corn and artichokes and just again here, carrots, whatever. So like just maybe roasting the vegetables first could just really add like a layer of flavor. So just, you could do them all at one time, and then you'll just have them done and ready to throw in. And then you can top it with like feta and tomatoes or something like that. And then salad toppers, so same thing. It's kind of like how sometimes you roast your nuts just to bring out another layer of flavor. So it'd be like doing that same thing with just different vegetables that you have. Instead of putting on raw carrots, maybe you roast them just a little bit. And the mushrooms, I have to say, they take longer to roast also. And that's because they have that higher water content. You would think they would just take a second, but they're because they have that more water. And I also have to tell you too, I ran across the recipe for sheet pan restaurant style salsa. So that could be a fun idea, right? They like roasted all the peppers and like some of the tomatoes, so it had that like roasted flavor, and then they made it into a salsa. And things like doing grilled cheese in bulk, or I've made baked peanut butter and jelly with banana, and just like it's like a French toast, and you put it on a sheet pan. Then so just like then you can serve multiple people. So that's just a breakfast sheet pan idea. Getting your fruits right. And then you could try something new like roasting garlic cloves. Those are amazing. So if you roast garlic and then once it's roasted, you smash it and you can add it into different dishes. It has that layer of flavor I was talking about. Cheese crisps. I don't know if you've ever tried this. I had to try it after I learned. It's like taking the Parmesan, the freshly grated one. I don't think it'll work from like the Kraft dispenser, but you just sprinkle it on kind of in a pile, and then you put it in the oven, and you could make Parmesan crisps. And so they have those sometimes at fancier restaurants. And you can also do it with cheddar, but it takes a little bit longer. Yeah, so that's that. And then here's just a couple bonus tips then. Okay, so you could also season together, like we were talking about, like all taco seasoning, or separate. So thinking about that is definitely an option too. Sometimes you might want the chicken tasting like this and the rest of the vegetables like a garlic or something like that. And that's it's kind of fun to be creative and figure out what you like. and then racking them up too can really help. Just as I go to the picture, right? So just I've used a cooling rack one time. You know how you have cookie racks sometimes, or for muffins or something like that. Usually, sometimes they're metal. You can just put that on a pan, and then you can get like the circulation, not just to help with things like fish or breaded things, and then like for the fish tacos, just so that it rotates a little bit more. That can be really great. Good effort. And then I just have some couple recipes that I picked out. So this is one of my favorites. I love, like, it looks so fun and people have fun eating it, I think. So it basically takes zucchini and you just, one layer all over the sheet pan. You kind of slice them kind of like you would with chips, right? Like, and then you throw on, so this would be a lower carbohydrate, good for diabetics because it has lower carbohydrate. And you're like, you toss on like some cumin, chili pepper, smoked paprika, and then you follow it with some shredded cooked chicken. So you cook the zucchini for a little bit first to give that a head start, and then you add that shredded chicken. You can use canned chicken. You can add a little bit of cheese, red onion, and then then you put it in again till the cheese is melted, and then when it comes out, you can put on avocado, pico de gallo, cilantro. You guys kind of see where I'm going here. Look at, I put avocado twice. That's how much I'm thinking about that. Beans and jalapenos can be really good. And then this was in a class I just did recently, the Med Instead of Meds recipe. But basically, all you do, it's like so vegetables. Each of them, like some of them have more protein than others, but they can't add up to a pretty good amount of protein. So what you do with these vegetables here is you marinate them just for a little bit with some vinegar. Like we use red wine vinegar, balsamic vinegar, and we put in some garlic cloves. And then also just the secret ingredient was chipotle chilies with a little bit of adobo seasoning. And so, and then olive oil. So, let them sit there, and then just in big pieces, like cutting the zucchini almost a long way, you put them in the oven and you roast all of that. And then when it's all done, you take it out and you make it into tacos. It's kind of a fun way to do that. You can top it with cheese or whatever. And then there's baked apple pork chops. I have a friend who loves this one. She said, you just put the pork chops. She don't use the bone in just because it'll take longer to cook, but you'll just have to wait for that to be done. So you'd cook the apples and veggies first for 20 minutes. So they're actually cooking longer than the meat. And then you add kind of like, make some room in there and add the pork chops and sprinkle in seasoning all over. And it's kind of like the same seasonings that you used in apple pie. So it's like nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, cloves, and then a little bit of cayenne. So that's for the meal of it. And then just bake it for another 25 to 30 minutes. That's one idea. And then here's just one of the people in one of my classes emailed me this picture once and just showing how she was doing it. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then I just have a couple other ideas. So just like that, things that might go well together, might brainstorm, like, help you give you some ideas. I guess like cod fillets, put broccolini or green beans and then white beans under the broiler. So broccolini, it's a green vegetable. It's similar to broccoli, but with smaller florets and longer, thin stalks, so it would take less time to cook. Then there's ones like the sliced chicken breast or shrimp, but you'd add peppers and onions. So you guys like fajitas, you can put a little taco seasoning on top, and then you'll have all the things right there ready to go for your tacos. You could do tofu, cubed sweet potatoes, and then add broccoli a little bit later, and you top it all with teriyaki. So that would be an option. And barbecue pork tenderloin, give that a head start on this one. And then cauliflower and green beans, chicken breast cubes, start that, and then add some asparagus and with some garlic and Parmesan. And then there's also a build your own sheet pan meal, and that should be a clickable link if you want to click on that. But basically it's just ideas on how you could pick a protein, pick your vegetable, then pick your seasonings, and then it works about 375 for about 45 to 55 minutes, and you're done. Just checking the temperature of the meat to make sure. And then this also should be a clickable link where you could click that, but just has roasted cauliflower there, and this is like a roasted vegetables. Their recipes are also on there, and behind that is a roasted cabbage steaks. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that, but it's a really fun way to serve cabbage. And we're in March, right? So, and then just wanted to tell you guys, like have fun with it too. So this was his sheet pan meal. But okay, so just coming up then, I have a class next week on the customizable family meals. So just how you could make something that appeals to all tastes. And then a diabetes class that I'm promising to try to make as fun as I possibly can. And also you'll learn a lot. So those are on Eventbrite. And then I have the evaluation. And then does anybody have any questions? So let me look at the chat here. You guys are great. Ooh, Pat, which link do you remember? And I can maybe I'll scroll down here. Yeah, if they don't work for you guys. It's funny, I made them try to work. I'm sorry. I can send them out though. Okay. Convection is faster. And that's very true. Feel about regular baking mode. Yeah, the convection, it just basically does this whole process a little bit faster. It's why some people like the air fryer because it has that convection type of idea. Let me see. Ha! Soul food. Sorry, that was good, Ethan. Fork test, that might be more appropriate, yes. All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming. Thank you so much. And yes, look for the evaluation and I'll send the links for the recipes. So thank you guys. Yes, hopefully see you soon.